Welcome back. I've got Graham Harris with me from the Sydenham Cricket Club. We've got also Dennis Cox from the Sydenham Hockey Club. They've combined well. They've got new facilities now by way of club rooms and pavilion, which is great. But another development's come along, and that's to form, we hear it a lot in business, don't we, about getting business hubs together. Well, it's happening at Sydenham Park. Graham, just briefly explain to us the concept.
Well, the concept is really about having a central controlling body that looks after the assets. And the assets really for us are the AstroTurf area and the pavilion complex, and there's probably the thick end of $800,000 worth of asset there. By doing that, it leaves the clubs free to concentrate on the operational side of their clubs, which is equally as important. But by working it all year round and by managing that facility sensibly, raising funds against it, making sure the asset is well maintained, it makes good sense.
Dennis, we came through an era, you know, where we had pig in a barrow and we had raffles and goodness knows what, and that all seemed to disappear from amateur sport, which I think is a problem area. Now you've got a combined. Do you rest on your laurels because cricket's going to raise you the money?
No, we don't. No. We work closely together, and really for the complex, the raising of any money is jointly done anyway by the SPC and that Sydenham Sports Complex, and that's one of the reasons of our combination. The initial reason for getting together was to utilise the facilities in summer and winter. But we've grown very closely together and been in the thing from way to go and been very well supported by some of the funders that are around. Have you been able to cobble some other sports to it? We now are in a position where we've got a facility that we can offer other sports. Right. I think would be fair to say to date, no, and the reason was because the facilities weren't up to standard before. Although in your case, you alluded to the fact that you've gone with Selwyn at the juniors. So that's still within your sport. I go along with that. In cricket, you've done a similar thing, have you, with the likes of? Is that mainly at the junior ranks? Is it?
Yeah. What's happened, Peter, is youth cricket exists in Canterbury, where the aspiration is to play with the elite sides, Boys High, Christ College, St Bede's, etc. For us as a standalone club, that was difficult. We just didn't have the depth. What we've developed is a southwest model, which takes in Hallswell Cricket Club, Sydenham Cricket Club, and the various feeder high schools, Cashmere, Hillmorton, Catholic Cathedral, and others. By working together as a group, we can develop teams that can easily and competitively compete against the Christ College, St Bede's, Boys High teams, Shirley Boys.
What about the Judder bar of who they're representing? Has that been a problem?
It can be, Peter. I mean, at the end of the day, we say to them, when you play for Southwest, you put that cap on and you play for that club, then you go back to your schools or your clubs and you retain your identity there. They have to wear two hats, that's true.
So who does Christ College hypothetically play? Do they play Sydenham? Do they play Southwest?
They play Southwest youth cricket.
Right.
And what it's doing is it's creating a pathway for these forgotten kids that get to high school and perhaps are a little bit forgotten. So by having this amalgam, if you like, of clubs and schools, we can concentrate on them and put some financial resource and coaching into them and give them that pathway through to premiers.
And it's fair to say, Dennis, there are some schools where their priorities are not sport, are they? But there are pupils at that school that want to play sport. I think we've already touched on that, and I think sport, to me, seems to be coming back as a strength into schools. It certainly dropped away for a number of years, and we're finding that schools are becoming more involved from a hockey perspective, and I'm sure Graham finds that from a cricket perspective as well. Do you find a spin-off if the national side does well? Do you actually see a bit of a growth spurt? In hockey, generally, yes. Yeah. Probably from the club's perspective, we're a little bit hog-tied at the moment because we don't, in fact, have a senior men's team, and junior hockey players aspire to play for a club which is strong throughout the playing grades, and unfortunately with what's happened in the Sydenham area, our strength in the men's side is not particularly good at the moment. Now I'm going to touch on a bit of a raw nerve, but obviously one thing that really surprises me, that nowhere have we talked about Sydenham Rugby. Have you got a problem?
No, it's really a case of what we can cope with.
But they play on their ground, for God's sake.
They do, but they've moved their club away from the ground to Kashmir Club, the club down in Colombo Street.
Could you handle them now?
No, frankly, we couldn't.
Okay.
And they would say the same.
Right.
There's probably not room. Hockey is more our scale, and we have a long association with hockey. You know, we'll still see Rhodesy in the street and have a chat and a coffee, but the reality is the Sydenham rugby boys have got their own agenda, and they're building a very strong club. It's probably going to be a problem going forward that our ground is too small to cope with all the different codes.
Correct.
Because hockey have a rightful place there to play their grass hockey.
Which, funnily enough, is on that main turf, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's a dying art, grass hockey, but you've got still some teams that want to do it.
There are older men's and older women's grade, I'm putting it very kindly for them, that are practising, and it is known as a grass grade. And the grounds are pretty limited in Christchurch, which we can get on.
Yeah, well, just see how strong Sydenham rugby would be if you booted them off the ground. I mean, they wouldn't have a home at all. It's a concern, isn't it? I just try to work through it in my head.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an answer to that, Peter. I mean, the reality is they're a very, very strong club now, and you know, right through from development through to their senior side, and they put a lot of time into that. Where we could all go, the ground just isn't big enough.
Correct. So what happens to your next door neighbour, the bowling club? I'm in a bowling club. I know the shrinking in the membership. They put their hand up and said, hey, you know.
We have had discussions with the bowling club and nearly come to a joining of forces. I think they, at this stage, still have their own agenda. And
it's a hard barrier to break down, isn't it?
It certainly is, and I think our sport, particularly our involvement with that junior level, and both clubs have a huge strength at junior level, sort of makes it difficult for the concept to join to bowls, as we regard, particularly with the Sydenham one, as an older membership, to be fair.
But if they had some foresight, you know, they would probably look at how they're going to grow their club. It's got to feed from your juniors' principles.
Yeah, and I mean, they look after us very well. We have the use of their facilities when ours is not quite big enough under the circumstances we have now.
So it's not a bad marriage, it's just not... You haven't consummated it.
The time's not right yet, Pete, but it'll happen in my view. I really believe it will. They have a declining membership. For them to combine with another club like Beckenham, and I couldn't see that happening because they'd lose their history, their tradition.
Guys, we've run out of time, but I wish you both the best of luck. I think it's very innovative. I think it's common sense, to be perfectly honest, and we wish you with the hockey season. And let's hope you can finish your cricket season well, you two. And we'll be back next week with another Pete Smith host.